How long do you have?
I don't know. We'll find out. My parents have not emerged yet, so I don't know if we're actually going to go to this farmers market. It's kind of rainy out, kind of cold
Hmm.
spring weather, so maybe they've given up on that idea. But I think we'll probably play some board games later on. Um,
Oh,
my
nice.
my parents are
Yeah.
into board games, and I really like board games, so it's kind of a tradition of ours.
Nice. Yeah, that seems like a nice pastime. I got to get back into them. It's a nice like family activity.
Yeah, I think it's like finding the right group of people. I think I've definitely like ruined a few friendships. uh, over Monopoly. I had this idea when I was 18. I invented, well, I don't know if I invented it. I guess I did. I guess I invented this thing where like you play Monopoly, but you play with three different boards at the same time. And like you start with three times the amount of money, and there's like three times the amount of property. And like once you go around to go on one of the boards, you jump across to the other board.
Ooh, that's kind of
Um,
cool.
and you like shuffle all the community chest and chance decks, and like you'd have to like jump to whichever board each of the cards applied to,
Oh,
and
was that
stuff like
fun?
that. We only ever played with two boards at once, and we never got through it. It took hours.
I
Um,
imagine, yeah.
so it's not very practical, but you need some like committed Monopoly fiends, and then you could play. I called it
Yeah.
Tripolyopoly.
Ooh, that's like, yeah, that's pretty nerdy, but that's really
Yeah, it
cool.
is. It's very nerdy. Yeah. How are you?
Um,
What's been going on?
just been feeling like a little goofy. Actually, I went to this party last night and I saw a bunch of kids from high school that I haven't seen in like a few years. And it was funny noticing that's like, oh my God, this shot of like adrenaline slash dopamine slash whatever, like feel good neurochemical cocktail. And then it's like nothing after that. Like literally there was multiple people who was like, yeah, dude, oh my God, so good to see you. And then it was just like that was the end of the conversation. So yeah, I think it was like there's something about the context of like parties that just like it's a container that kind of like fosters super like meaningless conversations. And it's just not really my vibe. But it was cool to go and like, I played some beer pong. Um yeah, I don't know how it was, but yeah, today I just got off work and this is a cool thing to talk about. I've just kind of the concept that creates so much suffering of like wanting your current experience to be different versus just like kind of the meditative practice of just like feeling the moment as it is and letting go of like expectations or like any stories in your mind that want anything but what you're experiencing. So it was nice to like keep reminding myself of that and know that like that peaceful like presence is like there.
Wherever you go. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was also thinking like I get this thought every so often, but it's kind of like a thought that keeps me up at night sometimes about like how I'm getting older
Mm,
and my parents are getting older and everybody else is. And the years just keep going by faster.
mm.
Um, so I was like thinking about that and I was like, oh, I actually want time to go by slower. So let me like not want to rush and get out of work
Hmm.
because I don't want time to go by faster.
Yeah, so like the only way of mm, the best way that we have of not making time go faster is to just really be present wherever you happen to be. And that makes
Yeah,
it feel, well, if you pay more attention, if you're more present, then you're less distracted. You less often just kind of breeze through things.
yeah, and it ends up kind of going by faster for sure. It ends up being like whatever you want it to be, I think. But yeah, definitely presence makes things kind of fly by. But it's been nice. I've been doing some of Adi Shanti's meditations. They've been cool. And one like the main benefit of the type of meditation mindfulness practice I've been doing now is like I really worked on my heart so much, which has been really valuable, like extraordinarily valuable. But I didn't put enough effort on like how to manage my thoughts better. So that's kind of like the realm I'm in right now, which is really cool. And definitely like also incorporating that like lower belly, like ground of being.
Mm,
So yeah, I've been enjoying them for sure.
mm, mm.
Does that does that invoke anything for you, or I'll turn
Um,
it back on to you also, see
no,
what you
no.
think.
It's like I was thinking that like for me, I kind of became interested in um, what would you say? I guess more esoteric ideas. Although I never really thought about them as esoteric. I really just thought about them as like a different branch of philosophy or whatever. Um,
Hmm.
I really became interested in them after reading Alan Watts' the book on the taboo against knowing who you are. That was a really
Hmm.
foundational book for me. Um, and then as I got further into meditation, there was this kind of idea that showed up in the literature and also showed up in my experiencing of like the meditation that I was being trained in. That was like they talk a lot about like monistic systems. So like a religious system or something, or like a worldview that has like one fundamental underlying principle, whether it be God or uh, whatever other word, Brahman, or I don't know,
Just the
all kinds
one.
of different, yeah, the one essentially. And thinking about how uh, that kind of theoretical construct or like philosophical school, how that intersects with my experience of time passing, like when those things kind of landed for me, that was a really big moment because it's like I really kind of uh, was able to feel how the ideas past and future are actually just ideas,
Hmm. Hmm.
and they might be really useful ideas, um, but just based on what's going, like if you there's some sort of connection between what's real and now, and like you can't really argue about that. Like that's not really, you know what I mean? Like that's a fact of experience. It's not really um something that like a position that I would want to defend. You know what I mean? Um,
Wait, what is in a position you want to defend?
the fact that there's a connection between what's real and now. Um, so I don't know. I guess I what I'm saying is I guess I just connected with the feeling that it's like, oh, there's this connection between, oh, what they're getting at is like in meditation, like, oh, attuning to what's most real. So kind of coming back to the present moment, and it's like,
Yeah, yeah, immediate
oh, it's
experience.
like, oh, it's what's going on now that's what's real. And there's a
Yeah,
kind of there's a way that that can land that's like
yeah, very profound.
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, just that as an idea, like, because it's like until you really experience that sort of thing, you really don't know. It's really hard to. It's either you've experienced that sort of thing or you haven't, and like you can understand, intellectually, like, oh, there is a different experience that you can have in relation to understanding that what's real is what's here now. But that still isn't the same. Even that isn't the same.
Do you think conversations like take us out of like or kind of like hinder our ability to connect to the present moment?
Depends on the conversation, I would say.
Yeah, because conversational flow is like you're very kind of enthralled in that and time flies by as well. But I guess I don't know, I guess I was thinking that there's something more casual about speaking versus like when you feel the present moment and you're just being and there's not like it doesn't feel like there's much like neurological processes going on besides just like having your attention on sensations and like unfiltered reality and it gets very sacred.
Mm,
It gets very sacred. I had a pretty good sacred circling experience on the last Thursday call.
mm.
It was pretty cool with this woman and I realized I very much am inspired when I have conversations with people, and I don't know if you experience this too, particularly like older people, and they'll just say something like, I have hope in the future, or like you're gonna be do big things. And it's very inspiring. And at first, for a little bit, I thought it was my ego, and I'm like, oh, I gotta stop like patting myself on the back when I hear that. But then I was like, you know what? It actually like inspires me and makes me want to like invest in myself more and actually believe in myself more. So yeah, that's been cool.
Yeah.
I forget how I got there.
No,
But
no.
yeah, so
You were talking about circling and like you had an experience
oh yeah, yeah,
with that sort
circling.
of person. But that's totally been true for me as well. I think like that kind of encouragement, that kind of like people really believing in you, that's really something that we need. And like I think like if when people don't get that, they're missing out on something just invaluable. Can't It's priceless. And like 'cause
Yeah.
it raises you up. It's like it makes you believe in yourself in a different way. And that just like raises the floor of possibilities in ways that we just can't even. There's a connection there. Hang on, that does bring something up. It's like um you know how there's that idea from physics that's like uh something that you would observe like changes based on the fact that you're observing it. Like it
Yeah,
can't
the
be.
observer effect with like
Yeah,
the double slit experiment.
yeah. Well, that's like an instance of a pattern that shows up in lots of different uh places and parts of the world. So like uh you can have experiences on psychedelics of past lives, but it helps to believe that past lives are a thing in order to have those experiences. Like,
Mm-mm.
or I'm trying to think of other examples that don't involve drugs. Um, there are lots of other examples, but I'm
Well,
struggling
it's
to
like
think of any.
the 4 minute mile thing kind of.
That's
Um,
exactly right.
where it's like once someone did it, then like just the belief that it's possible, all of a sudden all these other people start breaking it.
Hmm.
And I mean that's what the placebo effect is too.
Right, exactly. That's great examples. They were exactly
And
what
the,
I needed.
and then there's the Henry Ford quote where it's like whether you believe you can or can't do it, you're right, type of thing.
That's cool. Let me write that
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, it's
Um,
a good one.
so there's like something kind of underlying all of those different examples is like the idea that uh, the way that hmm, what we believe really matters in terms of what can be done. Like what we think can happen really has an effect on what will happen or what can happen.
Yeah.
And
It
like
has an
that,
effect on our yeah.
oh, it's just that also applies in our relationship with ourself. So like we think about our own potential, our own possibilities, our own capacities. Um, th- Believing in yourself, say, versus not believing in yourself on like a spectrum, that actually has a huge effect on what's actually possible for you. Because if you
Mm.
believe that you're capable of, I don't know, lots of cool things, then you are. Then you can become that way. And it's like it's not that it's the only thing that matters, but like it makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference. So all of that to say, I'm just trying to reinforce the point that you were making is that like really made you feel, if I heard you correctly, kind of lifted up and inspired, and it kind of put something in you that you can't get from anywhere else. Maybe you could speak more to that.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely made me feel like the life of my dreams is like, oh, like that could totally happen.
Mm,
Like, oh, this kind of almost like what I convinced myself is a fantasy and unlikely. All of a sudden I'm like, oh, you know what? Like it's totally there, even though I can't see it
mm,
and it's not there. Like none of my five senses can perceive it. It's
mm,
still totally possible. And I mean, that's like all great, like leaders and individuals in the past, like MLK, for example. It's like just an uncompromising will and belief in a future possibility. without having any evidence in their immediate experience that it was possible.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just it feels good is the bottom line pretty much.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's a nice like nudge to like re almost like getting a taste of like I don't even know what it looks like honestly, but it's just this taste of almost like my dharma.
Mm.
Like
Mm.
my soul kind of like comes up to the surface for a second. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, yeah, it's like it's possible. Like go get it. Like what you seek is seeking you, type of thing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Lots
So
of
I
cool
mean,
thoughts.
yeah, yeah, it's great. What was I don't know if you want to riff on anything else related to this, but I wanted to bring up the Beatles because I know you kind of said something about that, and I was curious what you were talking about. So I've
Do you
been
remember?
really into the Beatles.
Yeah. 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 Do you remember what I said? I never
You
do.
said, I mean, it was you said there was something about like group flow dynamics with them or like synergy of how
Oh,
they work together.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I was referencing a passage from a book that we've talked about before, The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test by Tom
Oh
Wolfe,
yeah.
Wolfe with an E. And yeah, in one chapter of that book, the author speaks about uh, the group of kind of central characters in the book were attending a Beatles concert, essentially.
Hmm.
Like a huge, like one of the just the biggest
And it's a real
concerts
story
that have
or
ever existed. Yeah, yeah, apparently, yeah.
okay.
Um, and there's this dynamic where um, the Beatles uh, were so it was like I guess just the idea that like the type of music that they played was a fundamentally new thing. It's something that had never been done before ever. They just like invented whole not only whole genres of music, but like a whole cultural experience, a whole lifestyle. Like and like the idea of a rave, the idea of like a whole lot of um, you know, like teenage girls just like being insanely into the Beatles and everyone else as well. That was like a new thing, like rock music. Um, but I mean, it's not exactly rock music, but you know what I mean. It's like in the direction of rock music, like a huge
Kind of
concert like that.
rebellious.
Yeah, yeah. And there was this dynamic there where like at this concert, um, all these people had been like so hyped, all these like hundreds of thousands or I don't know how many, maybe not quite that many, uh, of young people that were
Yeah.
just like totally like religiously idolizing these figures, and for good reason, like they're amazing. And then they like finally come up on stage after like all this hype up, and everyone's just like you know in varying states of ecstasy, and uh the Beatles would like play this music, and this the like tier one sound system that they have and stuff like that, and that would like they would have this kind of psychological control over the group, over the concert goers, um in through the language, through the medium of the music that they were playing. And so
Hmm.
that creates this kind of super organism, or like a like the author of the book was kind of just like standing back from that whole scene and just like watching it, and it's like, whoa, that whole thing looks like it's one creature. It's not like individuals anymore. So
Yeah,
there's
it's like an
something
entrainment process.
totally, absolutely. So I'd really recommend checking out that book, for one thing. And I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
point
I
you to
gotta
the
write that one
specific
down.
passage. It's a really cool book. It was really hilarious and
Yeah, I
well
love
written.
those.
Um, and so yeah, it was just about this the group dynamic stuff that I was really thinking about with the Beatles, and like the idea of people um kind of instinctively needing in some way a group to uh be a part of, a community to be a part of, and that can be done in ways that are either healthy or not healthy. And so we could talk in this context about uh the history of Marxism and Nazism as just two examples of like the religious impulse run wild and people's instinct towards group dynamics being turned into pathology. I saw I don't know if you know of these people. John Vervaeke, the cognitive
And Lex
scientist,
Friedman.
was on Lex Friedman, yeah.
Yeah.
And toward the end of their interview, Vervaeke was talking about how one of his political science professors back in the day said that if you just understand Nazism as a political movement, then you fundamentally misunderstood it. It's like, no, that's there's something religious going on there. It's like a pseudo-religious kind of social force. It's not just a political party. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so the Beatles in a similar kind of way, it's very like pseudo-religious. It's very, when they're at the height of their power, um, yeah, it was really
Yeah.
acting as a kind of replacement for all of that. And I guess that brings us back to the question of like, because all of that makes it seem very, why on earth would we want to encourage any kinds of groups whatsoever? That it's all really bad. And I guess it's like, there's another side of the equation, which we haven't talked about now, which is like the benefits of being part of a group in that way, and the advantages of it and why it's so essential and awesome. But the real importance of like doing that in a way that creates a synergy between the discernment, the autonomy, choice making of the individual
Yeah, yeah.
and the group, and that those can be the well-being of the group can be supported and bolstered and reinforced by the individuals.
Yeah, it's interesting. You definitely want, like, I think Jamie Will has a line where it's like increasing the sovereignty of the individual while simultaneously like enhancing the intelligence of the collective, so that you like everybody like needs to have free will still, but like ultimately we don't want part of their free will to be that they can like murder other people and steal things. Like we want them to be like part of that entrainment into a synergy is like you want the synergy to be an energy of like love and altruism and like being pro-social. So it's like free will, but like under guidelines where someone would kind of be funneled into a state of consciousness that was like their art, where they had the somatic understanding of unity and oneness and interconnectedness, so that they're acting from that place, like from the when Daniel was saying like when people act from a place of lack or unmet identity needs, like it's like game theory, rivalrous dynamics. But if you're coming from a place of wholeness, you're not trying to outshine other people. You're shining in the efforts so that you can like be an example, like the 4 minute mile, to show other people that they can shine, and then like give them their room, and ultimately like everybody's slice of the pie kind of grows in a sense. When that's the dynamic, I think.
And I think that's actually, just to kind of reinforce one of the points that you're making there, is that that's actually one of the things I really appreciate about our conversations, is that, how I've said it before about how I appreciate how you kind of give me the space to kind of flesh out my thoughts when I have something to say. It's kind of like that there's something underlying there, which is like, oh, you're coming from that kind of place. You're coming from that place of wholeness. And that allows you to let me express. And I feel often that I can express from a place of having unmet identity needs. And I can actually feel that in the sense that when I'm not looking at you when I'm speaking, when my eyes go off over there somewhere else and I'm thinking about something as I'm saying it, then I'm just saying for me, in a sense. I'm not connecting with you. And well, it's not as if that's always a bad thing, because like sometimes it's useful material or something like that. But it does mean that there's opportunity for me to attune better to the other person and measure what I say better.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. It's definitely that's a good like concept to riff on too. Um, but I mean, I definitely just like it's kind of the golden rule. Like I just want to treat you the way how I'd want to be treated, and so that you would allow me to, go through, navigate my thoughts. But I wonder, like, I mean, we're trying to like more than like us as individuals getting out our thoughts. It's like we're trying to create some sort of like mutual flow that like sets conditions for logos to like speak through us type of thing. Because ultimately, like that's the more euphoric experience. And that kind of ties back into like finite versus infinite game. It's like finite game, like you win, the other person
Mm,
loses. But when
mm.
you both win, you're both higher than either one of you when you win against the
Literally
other person.
higher.
Yeah, literally. Like so I mean I kind of wanted to go back also. Oh, but also I wanted to mention like if I'm like saying something and you have something that just feels like logos for sure, like don't like feel free to cut me off.
Yeah, well, likewise.
Okay, cool. Um yeah, let's see. There was certainly thoughts coming up about the Beatles type of thing. Oh yeah, John Lennon made a comment once that they're bigger than Jesus. I don't know if you ever heard about that, but there was a lot of controversy over that, and a lot of people were like, "Fuck the Beatles." Um, but yeah, it was like it's kind of true. Like that was like how Joseph Campbell said that the Grateful Dead concerts were like a Dionysian festival. It's like
Yeah,
very
yeah.
like you can get to like some sort of like transcendental level where there's like an emergence and like a coherence that makes it
Hmm.
just like sacred and
Hmm.
religious. Like you could call that
Yeah,
religious for sure.
yes.
Um,
And that's actually what the word religious means. Like that's that's what that word religious is supposed to evoke. And like I would say like where the word religious kind of evokes something that isn't that, we've just kind of gotten used to it not being that. You know, we're used to religion being something like, oh, I don't know, you go to church for like a couple of hours every Sunday morning, or like a set of propositions, a set of beliefs, right? But it's like,
yeah.
no, not that. How about not that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the thing like Christ didn't create other Christs and Buddha didn't create other Buddhas.
Mm.
Um, yeah, there's it seems like a lot of I've just talked to people and they're like, yeah, like religion's whack. And like that's kind of like a super like I almost want to say like one marshmallow for lack of better words. But that's kind of like a common mainstream belief at this point. Everyone's like, fuck religion, like it's dogmatic. And I used to be like that. But then I was like, I'm just thinking, like, have you like researched any religions? Like, there's actually like something there for sure. Like at the core and origin of every religion is like some sort of mystical, transcendental experience of like contact with God or something. Um, and I mean, like the Mormon one is kind of seems a little cheesy. So maybe not that one, but like the other ones all involve like experiences that are very fucking real. And those experiences are very mysterious. And like, yeah. Do you want to say
Yeah,
something?
no, that really made me laugh. I really like the idea of like they're all kind of on a level playing field in the sense that it just matters that you believe. It doesn't really matter what you believe. So it's kind of like pick and choose whichever one works for you, or pick and choose
Yeah.
multiple ones. That's my way. But I really like the idea of being like, yeah, except Mormonism because it's like on aesthetic grounds. On aesthetic grounds, it's kind of like, nah, it's not as cool. You know?
Yeah.
It's not as with it.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah,
it's
dude.
like that lame kid at the party. You know, it's like some lame nerd is like, oh, Mormonism. And it's
Yeah,
like,
just that kid. It's like, shut up, weirdo.
it's
Yeah.
like technically you're under the umbrella of religion, but like it's not exactly where it's happening, is it?
Yeah, it is funny. I don't know if you're at Stealing Fire, but Jamie kind of like
Yeah,
riffed on Mormonism for a little bit, like the origin story. Um,
I don't remember.
yeah, but I mean, back to the belief thing, like what even are beliefs? I feel like they feel like something ethereal. Like to me, thoughts, it makes more sense that thoughts are something that has to do with like our electromagnetic field, and then like that thought triggers neurological activity.
Hmm.
Like everything, like I guess I've just learned in like through the physics, the kind of more esoteric physics that I've learned about that like we have this bioenergetic field around our body,
Hmm.
and that is kind of governing the physical manifestation of like our our physical body. And it's kind of like Einstein's quote of like the field is the sole governing agency of the particle. So there's just been different studies. But it's interesting, like beliefs. What I want to get to is that like beliefs clearly have an effect on your health and like the expression of your biochemistry and just, gene expression, that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm very, very over the top convinced that like our thoughts, there's some relationship between like mind and matter, like their thoughts and our outer world, which I mean, I guess the observer effect proves that. But just with like synchronicities and different things, um,
Mm.
it's a very mysterious and interesting kind of um like ontological framework
Mm.
that feels like reductionist science like won't be able to come up with an answer with or like proven things. But
Mm.
I'm just very interested to know like how that works, I suppose, because I'm very convinced that there's like thoughts and then like outer world like synchronicities. Just feels like things have responded to my energy, my state of being, my emotions and my thoughts. What does that
Yeah,
invoke for you?
yeah. Well, I guess it's like I hear what you're saying in the sense that it's like it's one thing to realize that the distinction between mind and matter was just kind of a Cartesian artifact of Descartes. Just give me a second.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay.
You can feel it in the street on a day like this, like
All right. So where were we? Yeah, on Descartes. So like, it's one thing to realize that like the distinction between mind and body is just an artifact of Cartesian philosophy that then got built into our kind of worldview. And then so it's like, okay, we can have experiences of those things not being distinct anymore. So it's like, oh, okay, we can either, and that probably looks like reducing one to the other. So but not necessarily. It's kind of like maybe that's something like how there's like introvertive mystical experiences and extrovertive mystical experiences, where in Buddhism there are like different strategies where either you keep reducing the self until it's not there, and then there's just everything else, or you keep reducing the world until the world's not there and everything's you. And so one of them is like,
interesting.
yeah, there's kind of like different approaches, and so in a similar way with mind and matter, there are like philosophical schools that are like, oh, our understanding of physical matter, well, those are just traditions in thought, so those are in a sense expressions of mind, right? But there's other schools that the physicalist stuff, which is like, oh, even our thoughts and stuff like that ultimately have like a physical grounding, and so like the mind can be reduced to matter in that way, and in a similar way. So there's a kind of like different strategies, right, of saying how they're actually one thing, they're not two things. But it's what I'm getting at is that it's one thing to have an experience of those things, but then it's another thing to actually find like what you're kind of looking for, correct me if I'm wrong, is like an explanation of like how does that stuff actually work? Like,
Right. Like
and
some sort of like graph or like framework,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, and I think that's really interesting idea in the sense that as a something to, well, I feel like part of the risk of that is that if you find an explanation of all that stuff which is really convincing, um, then it's probably going to be of one school or the other. Like it would have to be, um, I don't know exactly what I'm saying here. It's something like, how do I, can you give me some sense of why is that something that interests you? Like, why is that explanation something that you want over and above the feeling that those things aren't separate?
I have a feeling that it has something to do with just like our innate programming to solve the mystery of existence
Mm.
and of like end of life.
Gee, is that all?
Yeah, so I think that's it, just that little part. But I mean, I don't know. It was a type of thing where like as I was saying it, I was like, oh, I felt like there was something more here. Like when it came out of me, I was like, oh, I actually like it feels like more of a dead end than I thought. I've because I had the thought like back when we were talking about beliefs in the 4 Minute Mile. So I feel like that was its place to in the conversation. It got delayed and I felt
Yeah,
it. I felt
yeah.
like it was a little bit like off, maybe a little bit. Um,
Well, no, I
but
always, yeah.
either way, I
Oh,
guess it's just my point is I'm convinced that there is such a thing. The question is just like how does it work?
yeah, totally. And I think ultimately the answer will that you'll find. Um,
We'll be on DMT. It's the only way.
the only way. I actually have no idea what to make of that whole neck of the woods. Um, it's very interesting in conversations how like you don't want to interrupt someone, and so like you let the moment for the thing that you had to say go,
Yeah.
so that they can, finish what they're saying or whatever. And it's like part of that is just you don't want to be rude, like you don't want to just interrupt someone. But then if the moment passes, then it's too late. Never get it
Yeah,
back.
that does feel like a skill that maybe like I feel that circling is like a new paradigm of like communication. Not completely, but like it feels to me like a more intimate, like kind of just more beautiful world type of communication. And there's got to be some sort of way to like to keep the synergy or like a good like tool instruction kind of manual for like, hey, these thoughts popped up. How do I like optimally weave it in to when I respond in a way that is like responding to what you said, but also presenting a new idea, which I feel like we do for sure without thinking about it. Um, yeah,
I think what I would say is like I think we have a lot of kind of instinctive skill with that sort of thing. We have good synergy about that sort of thing that we haven't had to kind of train. But I noticed that like there are definitely times when we talk when I'm better at doing that. And
right.
for what it's worth, I think there are times when I've been better attuned to you than today. And well, it's a skill that I'm still learning, that we're all still learning, but I'm
Yeah,
human
it's
too.
definitely implicit, and I wonder if like making it explicit with like instructions would make it easier, or if there's certain things that like should remain implicit, or else you'll just overthink it.
Well, it's kind of like we could try making it explicit, but I think probably a good chunk of what we were trying to make explicit would still be implicit. The unspeakable.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's see. Like there's one direction I want to go in about Nate. Did you get the book by the way?
Not yet, not yet. She said it would be in about a week, a couple of days ago. So,
Oh, nice.
but yeah, it is being sent. So that's good.
What are you still working on the Carl Rogers book or what's like in your book lineup?
Oh, I finished that off. There was some really cool stuff. Did we spoke about that the other on Wednesday, didn't we?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, we
yeah.
did.
It was like just like really cool stuff about how education and like the group flow dynamic stuff intersect. I just thought it was so cool, those couple of chapters. Anyway, no, I finished that off, and I've been reading Heidegger, which I might have mentioned as well, a book called Poetry, Language, Thought. So at the moment, I'm reading an essay called "What Are Poets For," in which he's
Hmm.
talking about like yeah, the role of the artist in society, and or actually,
Oh,
there
that's
is a
sweet.
relevant idea. There is a relevant idea. It's like you're talking about technology and like how well, what was he saying exactly? It's something about our drive to produce things, to make things, is a way of we produce them in such a way that they kind of shield us from the world. So there's like they're kind of like a metaphysical shield, so that we don't have to really be with the no thingness of the world. And it was compelling, the case that he was making. And I guess for me, it connected with this idea that it's like when the someone like Nate will say, "Oh, we need to stop making things. We need to make a circular materials economy rather than a linear one," or like we need to stop all consuming all of these things. And there's something about just addressing the problem at the physical or infrastructure level, and those things are true, but those things are like physical or outward manifestations of a deep inner need. It's like an expression of who we are and of what's going on internally. Um, and until those things are addressed,
I feel like most of it not though.
yeah,
I had this moment at this transformational festival I was at where I had such deep gratitude for technology, where I had kind of been on a wave of like fuck technology and how it like targets our reward circuitry and hijacks our pleasure centers and creates addiction and all this damage to the biosphere and stuff. But then I was like, damn, like this is so epic right now that we've been able to use creativity to create art sculptures and like light systems that and like fucking flames that shoot up on the drop of like an insane dubstep song to really get like a full five sensory um fucking profound ecstatic experience. Um so I would say like I agree, but I think it's being allocated towards just like dumb like primitive gene agenda like seek pleasure and avoid pain type of stuff. Like
mm,
it's being done from the wrong consciousness, which I think produces like just over like unnecessarily like way too much stuff.
mm,
um that's kind of, yeah, that's just my sense in this moment,
mm-hmm,
is that it's
mm-hmm.
just being done from the wrong level of consciousness.
Yeah, yeah, I hear what you're saying. Um, so it's kind of like we could tie that back to what Daniel was saying about like if you're speaking, there's a way of um acting or speaking from a place of wholeness where it's not that by being whole you lose the incentive to do anything. It's that it's coming from a different place. It's not coming from a place of lack, from a place of need. And it's kind of like an overflowing. It's kind of like it's not trying to get something that you don't have. Um, and I feel like there's a similar dialectic there with technology where it's like, it's not the making things itself which is the problem. It's that it's the where that's coming from. It's like if we're trying to get something, it's like if we're trying to create something that we need that we don't have, well then we're not going to feel satisfied, arguably. But if we can have what we need, which might look like a reinvention, retooling of religion, if we can feel okay, then we can still create stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I'm with you there.
It makes me think there should be like just a class like wholeness 101, like
Hmm.
from kindergarten.
Hmm.
There definitely needs to be some sort of like wisdom revolution for sure, I think.
Hmm.
But like it kind of becomes a multipolar trap if people are you have like nine people operating from wholeness and then one fucker who's just like wants to bite everybody else and cut them off. And then it's like, all right, well, what now? Do I just do I just like let that person take advantage of me and let them like, uh like do I just become the sucker because I was like allowing for everybody to get their what's theirs? Like did Does that track?
Yeah,
Would
yeah,
you agree with that?
absolutely.
That that's like
And
another multipolar trap?
yeah, and there's a whole lot of outstanding problems with that sort of stuff. Like, I don't know, I don't know if a good example of it, but it's something like with the group flow dynamics we were talking about earlier. It's like, okay, well, what about psychopaths? There's like, one in roughly, 10,000 people is just trying to fuck up as much shit as they can, roughly speaking. And arguably, um, they actually cannot feel in the way that other people do. And so it's not a matter of like helping them to feel, and it's just harder for them to do that. At least that, I mean, that's my understanding of psychopathy. Like, it's not a matter of like that they've repressed their emotionality. I don't know. I mean, maybe that is the case, but I think probably
Is
with
it a
some people it
disease?
is. Is it a disease? I think there are probably uh genetic stuff going on, or like there are like physiological kind of causes, genetic causes that can like change people's brains, and that does seem to be related to how they experience the world. But then on the other hand, a lot of it is intergenerational trauma and environmental triggers for things, and some of that can be worked out with deep therapy work, but I don't think all of it. And so it's like
Yeah.
there has to be a way of containing, again, like you were saying before, like containing people in the community in a way which encourages them to be kind of socially responsible, but also preserves their autonomy and individuality. And that's like a really hard balance to strike. Where like Daniel said before, right, where like we can't have school shooters. It's too powerful for that to happen. And so like you can't have people just being in their basements on their own. Like we have to engineer a society where that's actually not
Not
something that can
possible.
happen. Yeah. And that's a pretty big fucking change.
Yeah, it definitely feels to me a good direction. And I don't know how the fuck this would happen, but um Nate kind of has it in, or maybe I forget if it was Nate's video or the Charles Eisenstein one, but it's a more like localized, sustaining, uh, kind of economy ecosystem
Mm. Say
instead
more
of
about that.
having, instead of like shipping away like production and things that like,
Mm.
let's say like I'm in a city right now, Santa Monica, how dependent on like other cities in other countries is this city for it to be able to keep running how it is right now. So I feel like there's something about local production and like self-sustaining operation that brings people together and creates sort of an interdependence. Where I don't know if I was telling you this last time, but Charles had a great point about like how socializing and friends is kind of an add-on to just like survival needs being met. When we always evolved, like nature selected for a tribe because
Mm.
of how we were able to survive better in collaboration and cooperation. So it's like we need to need each other. It should be, and then like on top of that could be like deeper type of intimate stuff. But it's a weird point where we don't need each other anymore. And I feel like, yeah, just bringing back things local to
Mm. Mm. What comes up
that
for me
like,
there is that yeah, totally, totally. Um all kinds of interesting stuff. But you know how Daniel's spoken about symbolic uh like one of the causes of obesity, like if you uh eat too much food that isn't good I don't know, nutritious, then you're actually suffering from a lack of essential minerals and vitamins that you need, right?
yeah,
And so there's an underlying idea there which could be similar with social relationships where it's kind of like, okay, we have this need, right, which is like based on what Charles Eisenstein said, like something like to be social, like to be with other people. But it's like
yeah, belong.
what if we like double click on that and it's like, okay, well, what exactly are we looking for there? What exactly do we need? And it's like, it's not just being around other people, it's deeply connecting with them, I think. And it's something like, I think our current uh uh how people typically interact, like you were saying at that party that you're at last night, that's a kind of symbolic food. It's kind of just enough social interaction to keep you and other
Yeah, it's
people
like the fast
healthy.
food of socializing.
Yes, absolutely. And so it's kind of like until we generate deeper kinds of social connection, in the group dynamic kind of way or one-on-one kind of way, then we won't know what we're missing in a sense. We won't know what we've been missing. So this kind of rediscovery element of things. It's kind of this rediscovery narrative where it's like this connects with the belief stuff. Where like, well, if we start to believe that we're capable of more than we have realized that we're capable of as humans, then that can coincide with a kind of rediscovery of what we're really capable of, not only individually but socially when we get together.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a great point in there because everything in the universe that's gotten us to this point is like things for something to emerge, it needed to have the proper conditions from which to emerge out of. So it's like for you to like actualize, you need part of you being in the proper environment and the conditions that will allow you to like fully flourish, I think, is one in which you belong and you feel like known and like you share a story with other people,
Mm,
like one in which you have community. That's
mm,
something I've really noticed in myself too, is kind of this more coming alive and like I'm sure it has something to do with collective intelligence too, because the way I describe it is like you have a better reception to like the wisdom field or whatever your signal is.
mm, mm. I think I want to hear more about each of those things, or from you. For me, there's like we're in a really interesting place right now where a lot of the threads of our conversation just kind of tied together, and I feel like we're working towards some of the rationale for why groups are important and what we can get out of it, and some of the solution to the technology stuff, some of the solution to the internal lack stuff, and like all of those kind of threads all tying together, and that kind of coincided with this period in the conversation where we're kind of really bouncing off each other, and maybe in a way with it for other parts of the conversation haven't been like that as much. And I'm just noticing that, and I see how. Well, no, I want more. I want more, which is ironic.
Okay. So let's see. Um, I've my kind of like trinity that I've said that we're disconnected from is like nature, one another, and then the divine. And I feel like the domesticated zoo animal, it's like we need to remammalize. That's kind of like returning to the way things were. And then I do feel like people had like, um, techniques of ecstasy in the past, but I don't know, to my understanding, it's kind of been reserved for like esoteric mystery cults to really know the true secrets of how to like die before you die. Um, so it's like there's something about remammalizing, um, and bringing people back to that level of interdependence while also like transcending together and reaching for like this divine aspect that maybe wasn't fully there when we evolved in like tribal settings. That is totally possible. Like there is something there that that takes us to like the global centric perspective. Because if you just have like remammalizing without the divine grounded in our being, then you just get kind of like the ethnocentric tribalism thing. Um, so I feel like it's reaching to our past and kind of like, I don't know if the future is the right word, but something that maybe has been latent in a lot of humans. Um,
Okay, let me see if I can kind of pull out some of that. So part of it is like a remembering of what we've forgotten. Part of it is like okay, people in the past, they had access to communities of practice, both communities and like literally like different practices that they would do that maintain them individually and their communities. And we've forgotten a lot of that. And so this remammalizing is a kind of remembering, a taking on of our inheritance, of our legacy, of their legacy, sorry, as humans. But then also at the same time you're saying, well, there's something new. There's something new that needs to happen. There's something that has to happen that hasn't happened before. Something genuinely creative. And there seems to be some dialectic there. Or like, does that track? Does that?
Yeah, I'd say that's definitely like what I was saying. Definitely up that alley. And I think that might be like there's this good book I read called Evolutionary Enlightenment, where the basic premise is like there's like God in its like being form, and then God like in its becoming. And he calls the becoming God Eros. So like you someone's like call to awaken or have a spiritual awakening, it's not really personal actually. It's just like the universe wanting to evolve through you. So my sense is that something being unprecedented is this like Eros force trying to evolve the whole universe, but we're here on Earth. So what's evolving here is like involves yeah, grasping or not grasping, but like learning that unprecedented aspect.
Reaching.
Yeah, definitely like reaching for the divine, but also like grabbing a hold of it for sure. And since that's global centric perspective, I feel like you could argue we need that more than ever now when we have like the godlike technology and um we are kind of like globally interconnected at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you can argue, not just from a um psychological integrity, like spiritual reawakening kind of end of things, but those experiences are some of the most reliable and really the only probably sustainable ways to encourage people towards a global centric worldview. At least I don't know of any other ways of encouraging people to, like, other than an experience, the developmental arcs to world centric perspective are long, like lifetimes. Lifetime. And like, I don't know if we have that much time. And so I don't know if you heard the third part of the conversation between Daniel and Nate, but Nate kind of came back to the idea of, oh, maybe, triggering this shift towards world-centric perspective in everyone is the only way to prevent, the existential risk catastrophes. And I think that's where a lot of people have landed is like, okay, how can I help everyone experience this kind of thing as quickly as possible? And that's a really interesting place to come to, but I don't. Do you think world-centric perspective on its own is enough?
No. And I would come back to Daniel's framework of like needing the trinity of like the mind, the heart, and the will. So like if you can train those and get them all functioning in coherence, I think that's what we need more or less.
Mm. And so the world-centric, does that feel to you like just heart? It's kind of like
Yeah,
circle of
feels
care.
mainly heart. Yeah, because
Mm.
like, and Adi Ashanti was saying this too, and I was like, that's so true. I've also thought this and experienced it. But like the heart center, like what he calls the spiritual heart, like really is like your connection to oneness. It's like your center of wholeness. And like if you look at the chakra system, it's like the union of polarity. It's literally like the center of the magnet. Like you have like the three centers below, you have the heart, and then you have the three centers above. So the heart's this kind of bridge where opposites meet. And it's really beautiful in that way that you like when you start opening your heart and really like bringing online that feeling of love, it carries the message of Like I'm in everybody, I'm in everyone, I'm in everything. So I mean, it's such a overwhelming but good overwhelming sense of wholeness and love and home. Um, it just feels like, your best friend and your best lover, and you know that it's in everything. So you have this like sacred bond to everyone and everything because like um the core of every being is kind of that feeling of love, even though it might not be awakened in them. So yeah, to answer your question, I do think like world-centric perspective comes from like a heart opening experience, consciousness type of thing. Um, but I mean, I've riffed on this before too, like learning about interdependency of ecosystems and stuff like that's also
Mm,
really beautiful
mm.
because there's just like, everything needs everything.
Yeah, everything needs everything. That's a great way to fucking put it. Everything needs everything. Write that down, man. Uh,
Yeah, it's beautiful. And then yeah, I don't know, maybe the will aspect is like kind of what we were saying earlier of like having people that believe in you. They're like, yeah, man, like fucking go after it. Like nobody else is gonna fill those shoes. Or maybe like if you don't, then someone else will. But like your puzzle piece is like completely unique. Like there's
mm,
never been a you, there will never be another you.
mm, mm,
So
mm.
like you find that really in like supportive community.
Man, you had a good couple of minutes there. Like that you're like taking a drink, like you've just, it's like you've completed one stage of the triathlon. Like, whew, wipe sweat from your brow. Man, that was
Yeah,
intense. Yeah, it was beautiful. I like that. There was
thank you.
yeah, they're all great things to say. I won't bother trying to repeat them, but yeah, good job. Uh, so there's this connection there. You know how I don't know if you've ever heard from anyone comes up in different places where there's some sense in which the choices of the individual really relate to the fate or the destiny of the whole, where there's some way in which our individual kind of choices, I guess, or our individual sense of whether we go after it or not, to use your words, that really matters. And it's kind of like there's this fatalistic, pessimistic, environmentalist point of view, which is it doesn't fucking matter what my lifestyle changes are because, China still emits like 40% of global emissions or whatever, and I can't do jack shit about it. So
Mm-mm.
I might, it would be the same whether I commit suicide or not, say, or whether I am a really big emitter or not, say. And it's like, there's a sense in which that's true. And so I'm trying to like parcel out that sense in which it's true and just like leave that to the side in the sense that, okay, well, we do need to fix climate change from like a more systemic level and just individuals being, and it's not this kind of, there's this kind of tacky way of responding, which is like, oh, but if everyone makes all the individual decisions, then everything will be better. And it's like, that's not what I mean either. I mean something like, um, how do I express this? It's like kind of connects with the potential and belief in yourself, inspiration kind of thread that we've been pulling on today,
Mm.
where like there's a way of taking all of the shit things about the world onto your own shoulders and kind of taking responsibility for as much sin is one way of thinking about it that's in the world in a way that's not overwhelming, but it brings those things not just into your circle of care, but into your sense of who you are. It's like you change your sense of who you are such that, I don't know, just pollution in China, just to use the same example, that's something that you're at least partly responsible for. Then having that attitude as a kind of default requires you to change your sense of who you are to do that. And there's something really important for me about, okay, where are the bounds of your identity? Like, how are you just here? Is it just here? Or is it, as you were saying before, like this connection with everything around you? And so there's this way of intellectually getting to the experience of everything, having this deep sacred connection with everything in the world and everything around you. There's an intellectual route to that, a trajectory towards that, which is to say, the shit things that are happening on the other side of the world, I'm going to take responsibility for them as well. And that's not to overwhelm you. It's not to say that you need to do anything other than be where you are and act within and live with integrity where you are. But it is to say that, um, what is it to say exactly? Well, I don't really see a way to the sustainable civilization that is trying to emerge unless a large percentage of people can widen not just their circle of care, but their sense of who they are. And so, like, at the moment, like, we're on this call, and like, here I am over here on my side of the world, and like, my little screen is above you, and it says Samuel Dupuri, and that's me. And you have your little square, and it's like, that's Benny, and Benny's over there, he's in Santa Monica, and we're separate people on other sides of the world, and we're having a conversation. That's what's happening. But it's like, well, is that what's happening? Is that what's happening exactly? It's like, I'm not so sure that that's exactly what's happening. It's like something else is going on as well. And maybe it isn't as
Yeah.
well. Maybe it's not the instead of, but it's like, um, what am I trying to get at
We
here?
are literally affecting each other's biology right now.
Totally, man.
Like we are inside each other in a sense.
Yeah. And that's why for me, like conversations like this, I put them in the sacred place, or like the sense of sacredness, the sense of things that really matter to me. Conversations are really central to that because we're sharing something here that can't be shared any other way. And it's like, I don't know how else to express that, but it's just like, I guess what I mean is, uh, there is a real way in which you believing in yourself and you making the choices that are the choices that are your choices to make, you going after it versus giving up and not going after it. That really does involve the fate of the world
Mm.
in a way. But it's a really interesting way. It's not like I'm not using metaphor, although I suppose that does sound metaphorical. I do mean literally. But it's like the thing is that it depends on who you are. So it's like it's not that the choices that I, Sam, make about my Sam's life will affect the whole world. I mean, maybe they can, but it's like if the choices that I make include transformation of who I am, then it can affect the whole world because then other people wouldn't be different from me. That's an interesting way of putting it. They wouldn't be different from me. Maybe I just want everyone to be like me. Maybe that's really what's going on. Be easier. No, all good.
Yeah, I feel like at one of the cores of like what you're saying is like how to get people in a perspective where like what they do and how they act matters, and kind of like tying in an experience of like your interconnectedness to like an impetus that like how you act like has a butterfly effect, and everybody has a butterfly effect. Is
Yeah,
that kind of
totally.
what we're
Yes,
saying a
yes,
little bit?
yes, absolutely. And it's like,
And
but I think it's not exactly clear to people why or how that's the case. And I'm trying to thread that for them by saying it's like, it's about who you are. Because like on the basic premise that we misapprehend ourselves. We misjudge who we are. And we are something, someone that has infinite potential.
we are the possible. It's interesting, like if you look at things like morphogenesis, have you heard of that?
I've heard of it, but tell me what it is.
There's like a morphogenetic field that kind of stores like all knowledge and all behavior. Um, so that like even if nobody's watching, the way you act matters because we're all kind of connected to this field that contains all that information.
Mm,
So it's going to impact other people. And it's kind of like, I don't know if I've talked to you about the peace gathering projects where people gather and focus on attention like peace, and it
mm,
lowers the
mhm,
crime rates and it lowers
mm.
like death rates. And there's like
Wow.
just more like economic harmony. So it's kind of this non-local indirect effect. Um, based on like somehow us both being connected to this source.
Mm,
And like if you change yourself, it changes your signal to that,
mm.
which fundamentally changes like people's reception because we're both sending and receiving from it. Um, yeah, and I also like there was a couple things that you said brought up like Rumi for me. Like Rumi's quote of like, yesterday I was smart, so I wanted to change the world, and today I'm
Mm.
clever, so I'm changing myself, or I'm wise, I forget. Yeah, today I'm wise, so I'm changing myself. And this thing of like you're you're not just a drop in the ocean, but you're the whole ocean in a drop. Like you're a part of the whole and the whole and a part. And it's kind of like a cool fractal type of thing. And then yeah, the as within, so without kind of like hermetic principle of anything you see in the outer world, like look to yourself to see how you could heal that corresponding fractal that could be living in you.
Yeah, track all of that. That's all really cool. Can you like take one of those examples and flesh it out a bit more?
Yeah, let's see. Oh, also, what I said before I started with the Rumi thing, did anything come up for you?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Um,
I already forgot what I said.
wasn't it yesterday I was something, so I tried to change the world today.
No, it was something I was saying before that. Um, all good, all good. Um, yeah. So let's see. Well, I guess like the yesterday I was clever. It's like, okay, I realize I'm a part of like the system and how I behave matters. Like, let me
Mm,
go change the world. And maybe it's like coming from a place of not having your own garden tended. And
hmm hmm
like the wisdom of like, I guess just like morphogenesis type of thing, where like you changing yourself is enough. That is like the best thing you could do
hmm
to impact the world.
hmm
But I really don't think it's
Because
one or the other.
yeah. Oh, well, I
I
was
think
just
it
gonna
should be
say,
both. Yeah,
yeah,
go for it.
totally, totally. I was just gonna say, it's not that changing yourself and changing the world, they're not as separate as you think they are, in the sense that if changing yourself involves changing your sense of who you are, then changing the world can fit within the project of changing you. Because if you can have experience, if you can connect with the feeling that the world, that everything in the world, everything around you is part of you, and that you are part of the world equally, then changing yourself is changing the world.
Right, right.
So those things are interdependent
Yeah, yeah.
because
And
everything's connected.
it's a great like synthesis as like I believe we're in the age of synthesis. So it's really cool that you said that for sure.
We're in the age
Um,
of synthesis. That's a cool thing to say.
yeah, that's what I've
Everything
named
needs
my
everything.
website. Yeah, everything means everything.
Give me a
Yeah,
second. Everything needs everything.
dude, these fucking pros.
You know, have you read uh what's his name? Carlos Castaneda.
No, I
Carlos
haven't,
Castaneda.
I've heard of I've definitely heard of him a bunch.
The teachings of Don
Don
Juan.
Juan.
Yeah, you should check that out. It's really cool. Really it's such an interesting book. This isn't a great spot because of that light. Maybe I'll move back to my
It's all
cheeky
good.
corner. Okay. Everything needs everything. Well, okay. Well, one of the things I noticed from what you were saying was like for me, Taoism has been really central. Um, and so this way, it's come up a couple of different times. Like there are a bunch of polarities here. One of them is like you and me. one of them is like the chakra system that we were talking about, like chakra energy centers below the heart and above the heart, and another of them is like the individual and the collective, and another of them is like working on yourself versus working on saving the world. And it's just like, in a sense, I'm not trying to reduce them to Taoism though, but I just use Taoism as the model of dualism that I like.
Mhm.
So by Taoism, what I mean is the polarity of things. And I don't know exactly what I'm trying to get at by pointing that all out, but I feel like that when you just before in the kind of section where you were talking about Rumi, it was like you gave about like 5 or 6 examples, and they all seem to be like different iterations of the dualistic principle. And maybe the question is something like, what's your understanding / experience with Taoism? What does it do for you? And then also, how do you distinguish Taoism from dualism? And what's been your understanding and experience of dualism? Or like the ultimate polarity of things? Or how do those things like tie into your experience of sacredness and oneness?
Oh God, I don't know if I have any clue how to answer that. That's a great question, though. That's like a fantastic question.
Oh, thanks, man.
I definitely was attracted to Taoism because it seemed like the religion of flow, and they talked about like spontaneity and experiencing the Tao, which is like the union of polarity, where opposites meet. And I guess like Taoism like acknowledges that there is duality, and it feels like it seeks to transcend it while living in it, and almost like I feel like duality is just like part of the Maya, which is like the illusion. And I think they're acknowledging that like yeah, it's there, but like when you truly wake up and you see things the way they really are, there is only one.
Mhm.
And you are just like one little piece of the universe being played by like the sound of silence type of thing. And like when you act to that in spontaneity, like you aren't resisting the flow of eros to like bring back what I was saying earlier. But yeah, I don't know. I've just like my personal experience, I've just felt a lot of love. And I'm sure there's been other cool things that aren't coming to my mind right now, but like I haven't gone like that deep. I haven't like died and been reborn really. In a sense, I have on a small scale, but like full blown, like becoming the universe or, um, you know, returning back to before the Big Bang type of thing. Like I haven't done that yet. Which I feel like, so I would say I haven't fully like experienced the Tao.
Me neither, man.
So I mean, you asked the question, did you have thoughts or an answer
Oh,
to that yourself?
well, I guess I'm just like, part of me is noticing this. Well, I've ended up becoming fond of Taoism, you know, and that's kind of an interesting thing because on the one hand, as you just said, there are ways in which the dualism is part of Maya, duality is part of Maya, and things are all one ultimately, and by definition, ultimately, and um, so there's a way in which, in that sense, the duality of things is bad, or we don't like it, or we don't want to encourage it, or like, no, it's wrong. Duality is not the answer. It's
Mm,
not the case. But then also, there are ways in which noticing, learning to notice, learning to see the dualities underlying things is really useful. And there are deep ways in which duality is true. And my liking for, my preference for Taoism kind of falls into that camp, I guess, of the two. And notice that those two reactions, let's say, those two positions, those two schools of thought, those are themselves polarities.
Oh yeah.
And so there's this deep way in which duality recurs. And so it's complicated because it's like, okay, well, if you have this duality there, this dialectic between, oh, well, do we want to encourage recognizing duality or do we want to encourage recognizing unity? And it's like both. That's the whole point. Both and like there's
Yes.
a sense in which the unity there that we're talking about, that unity is actually a unity of encouraging pointing out unity and encouraging pointing out duality.
Mm, mm, mm.
That's a very abstract way of putting it. What I mean is like there's a way of, well, there are
Bridging
deep,
them,
sorry.
like bridging them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And
have a
so,
quote that
yeah.
like really feels like it fits this. Kind of cool. Um, you mind me sharing it
Yeah.
really
Yeah. Yeah.
fast?
Go for it. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. It's from the book Evolutionary Alignment. It says an overwhelming urge to make manifest. Oh, it's talking about Eros,
Yeah. Yeah.
like this force. It has an overwhelming urge to make manifest its ultimate nature as seamless unity in the realm of multiplicity. Seamless unity in the realm of multiplicity.
Okay. I'll, it reminded me of Daniel again. And so I'm going to try and bring out this kind of difficulty that I'm trying to work with, or by using Daniel and this quote that you that you used. So you know how we were talking earlier about Daniel's he kind of noted the difference between coming from a place of wholeness versus coming from a place of identity need. And if you're kind of coming from a place of wholeness, that's kind of the same as the incentive to get people to world-centric consciousness, or the incentive to get people to unity, experience of unity. Is it like when you are fundamentally coming from a place of everything being separate, then you don't have insight into the way that your actions will affect the whole, affect the system. And so there's a sense in which, in order for actions to come from the right place, either in terms of the Bhagavad Gita or like right action, or in terms of sustainability, like in order for actions to not fuck up the whole, you kind of have to come from a place of unity, right? But it's like
Mm.
that makes it seem as if it's good to reduce multiplicity to unity. And what I want to say about that is it's like, for someone that's not kind of spiritually inclined towards esotericism, they would hear something like that and say, okay, but how do we build a house? You know, how do I know to put food into my own mouth versus into someone else's mouth? If everything, so they hear this unity thing, and it's like, it just seems like this amorphous mass of nonsense, and like,
Magical
how's that
thinking.
useful? Yeah, exactly. And so what I'm getting at is that it's not that this unity is fundamentally opposed to multiplicity, and that we're saying we have to, everyone has to prefer unity to multiplicity. It's not exactly that. It's something like there's a dialectic there between unity and multiplicity, and the unity that I am advocating on behalf of is a unity that actually includes the different values and different advantages of both unity and multiplicity.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a complicated thing there where like I'm actually using unity in two different ways with that couple of sentences that I just spoke. So there's a way
I,
in which unity is in a dialectic with multiplicity, And there's a way in which unity transcends that dialectic. And maybe I need to use a different word for that one. But do you see what I'm getting at there?
Yeah, I think that tracks to what I was saying earlier when I was talking about the book Evolutionary Enlightenment, like the being God and then the God of becoming.
Cool, cool,
The
cool.
God of being
Say
is
more
kind of
about
like
that.
this, it's kind of this concept of like the void where there's nothing and there's only one void, there's only one nothingness, eternal nothing. But as soon as you manifest, like basically the philosophy on that nothingness is that it it is pregnant with possibility. Like it contains the fabric that's able to manifest into infinite potentialities. So like as soon as you have things manifest, like there's objects, um, and the like when you have objects in distinction, there's like capacity to be disharmonious and like autonomous with free will type of thing. Assuming free will is a real thing, that paradigm. Um, yeah, so it's like it's kind of like the arc of like alpha before the alpha point was like we're all nothingness together. But after the alpha, like there's this like separation and we split off. And then as we're heading towards the omega point, we all start to come back together and we start to organize as individuals in harmony. Just like your body is like a community of trillions of cells working in concert together, a healthy body.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So I think that's what we should strive for is that like um the dialectic is like separation and then like oneness, nothing. But
mm,
how can we be separate and distinct
mm,
while
mm-hmm,
being unified and
mm-hmm,
acting as like emergent harmonious entity?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That
So
seems
that,
like the direction
yeah,
that
yeah,
like
totally, totally. So that analogy of the body that Daniel uses is so useful, where it's like we're not talking here about, sorry, the unity that we're advocating. It's not exactly like that. It's like, but there is a sense in which we've been, someone listening to this from like a scientific materialistic paradigm might say something like, oh, these people are kind of trapped within a monistic conception of the world, where like they're kind of prioritizing without questioning their an experience of the world, a model of the world, which is there's an ultimate oneness, there's an ultimate thing, and we haven't kind of, that's been kind of a premise of our conversation today. It's been like a paradigm in which we've both been operating. Um, but actually, what I'm trying to get at is that like I want to be able to connect just as deeply, just as much with someone that's running a paradigm of there not being an ultimate oneness. And that's like a really hard needle to thread. But like, I guess what I'm saying is something like, I'm not defending a unity which is a homogenizing unity.
right,
So
right.
in the body analogy is a great analogy. It's like for the body to work, there need to be neurons, there need to be liver cells, there need to be red blood cells, there need to be fat cells, there need to be all kinds of different things, right? And there's a way in which those cells, those different types of cells, work together to produce the emergent property of the body. And if they were all the same type of cell, if our body was only neurons, then it wouldn't work. We wouldn't get the body.
Right,
We just
right.
get it. You just have a lump of neurons. And um, so there's a way in which the differences uh, of the different types of cells are essential to the functionality of the unity.
Hmm.
Um, and what that means here is it's like in terms of someone's worldview, um, I feel like I'm losing this because now I'm thinking of all the ways in which someone's worldview can actually be a problem. And like someone has a worldview which is like, it's fine to kill everyone. Then it's like, well, I don't know if that actually works.
But like, okay, I'm
But you
gonna
know what? I
say,
think you get what I mean.
yeah, what that brings up for me is like we need people to cultivation of insight and facilitation of epiphany so that it steers them in the direction of their dharma.
Mm.
Because like if everybody's doing their dharma, then it's like heterogeneous unity, heterogeneous coherence.
Yes.
And the liver cell will be the liver cell. The liver cell won't like see the neurons on social media and then try to be a fucking neuron.
Mm-hmm.
Or just like feel lack because they're not in touch with like themselves. And I really do believe that there's like a seed or a blueprint in everyone that is their dharma.
Mm.
And it is kind of like a metaphysical concept. Um yeah. So I like if there is effective and efficient education structures that can direct people towards their dharma, I
Mm.
think that's a really good place that will be upstream of everybody operating
Mm.
in coherence.
Why?
Because it's kind of like the changing yourself and like showing up as like who you're supposed to be. So I guess I can go back to like the neuron's supposed to be the neuron, the skin cell is
Mm.
supposed to be the skin cell.
Mm. So, but what is it there about? You said something about educational facilities. Like there's something about the necessity for something like that being upstream. And I'm wanting to draw that part out of you. Why did you jump to educational facility there or something like that? I forget the exact words you used, but there's something essential, something upstream, something causal about a place or gathering.
Yeah. Well, I think it could stem from like Charles Eisenstein talks about like the story of the world, and we're storytelling monkeys, and there's kind of this collective story that underpins all of our belief systems, which is like really upstream of like the expression of how everything operates in the world.
Mm.
So it's like part of a new collective story could be like, hey, everybody has a dharma. How do we orient towards that in our education system so that people grow up and like the fish doesn't get judged by its ability to climb a tree, and we don't have to like learn things that are fucking erroneous and just like that we're really not interested in.
Mm.
How do we like encourage and condition people to like follow their bliss and follow their curiosity
Mm-hmm.
type of thing?
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean that's what Daniel talks about when he was homeschooled. Like his parents
Mm-hmm.
just tried to like encourage him to follow his curiosity and see
Mm-hmm.
like what. So I mean it seems like when you have epiphanies or insights, you're getting closer to like what is yours to do. And even if that's not true on a metaphysical level, like our very belief system and a new collective story can make that true to tie back into the very beginning on how powerful our beliefs are. You know what I mean?
Say that again. So more about that. I'll say that in a different way. What do you mean make it true?
Um, just like how the dude,
Mm.
like if someone believes that they can, run the 4 minute mile, um, then they do it. Or if someone, I don't know, it could be anything random. If someone believes that they can do like lose 200 pounds or um anything that people said that nobody could do, or just like anything that you are coming up against yourself in a belief. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess like I like how I was saying that I believe that there is a blueprint in everybody of their
Mm-hmm.
dharma,
Mm-hmm.
even if that's not actually there as like a metaphysical structure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying we can like create that
Mm-hmm.
because of like how our beliefs
Are
impact
malleable.
us
Right. Right. Right.
and like come to fruition and impact the
Mm-hmm.
manifest world.
So what you're saying is, let me hear if I'm hearing you correctly. There's a piece about education that we should come back to there and the importance of a facility and development and those sorts of things. So I want to flag that and come back to it. But just for the moment,
Mhm.
this metaphysical element of what you're saying is like what you're pointing to there is it's like someone's metaphysics really almost by definition, that is how they conceive of the world. That is the world in which people kind of feel as if they're operating within. So like it's not metaphysics in terms of a set of propositions that someone believes about what the world is and what reality is or what life is. It's an experience. It's a the world in which someone is enmeshed in at an experiential level, at a sub propositional level. And what you're saying about that is that there are ways in which it doesn't matter what someone's metaphysics is, and we want to be able to work with different metaphysical systems. But there's also ways in which someone's experience of the world that they believe in, that they operate in, that there are ways in which that might matter in terms of what they can do. And again, correct me if I'm wrong about any of this, but you're saying that because people's worldviews are malleable, because we can shape what people believe, what we want to do is like find any of the places where someone's worldview or self-conception is limiting their potential or hindering them or hampering them, and encourage them to, well, I was going to say fix it or update it or change it, but it's like you don't want your belief about what's possible of you and what's possible in the world to limit you. Like, don't let that be the limiting factor. Don't let that be the rate limiter, which is to say, the imperative, believe in yourself. That is a directive. That is a thing to aspire to. That is a trajectory. Believe in yourself and maximize that as much as you can. That can actually ultimately come up against metaphysical barriers. That, like, if you really take the idea of believe in yourself seriously, you really take the idea of you have infinite potential seriously, then that can involve then realizing that infinite potential and committing to the realization of that infinite potential can involve changing the metaphysics within which you operate. So we're actually talking about not something which is really shallow, which is like, oh, believe in yourself and be inspired, versus, believe that you're not capable of anything. We're actually talking about something which is really fundamentally deep down, which is like, if you really believe in yourself, then you fundamentally live in a different world. You live in a world where anything's possible.
Yeah, and there's a good point in there about like skinny logos, where like believe in yourself, when things become cliche, they get co-opted into this like surface level culture that makes something that's really deep just like very surface level. And that I've
How?
noticed that.
Or can you give an example of that?
I was thinking how like Jamie, when we were at Camp Omega, Jamie said like sense making and sovereignty, and he was like disgusted. He was like that he had to say those two words. And I think he specifically has a big problem with like terminology just getting way overused, and eventually like its message and its real meaning gets kind of corrupted
Mm-hmm.
in a similar way of how like religion gets co-opted, and things start to like rust, and like it's kind of like playing a game of telephone where it's just kind of like becomes unrecognizable and loses its true logos that's in there, and it's just like the word. It's just like the words, but it's not the actual logos that comes along with it.
Right. So
It's
sorry, that ties back to what we were saying near the start, which was like the difference between experiencing and experiencing. Like there's a way of something landing in which it's not just a belief that we're talking about. It's not just a proposition that we're talking about accepting. It's something really fundamentally different that you can't know of until you've felt it. And not to say that I've felt it or you felt it, but yeah.
Yeah, and I've noticed this when I've read poetry, and then I've had a numinous type of experience, and then I've read it again, and I'm like, oh, this is different. Like I understand it on a deeper level now.
Mm.
You know?
I was just thinking there's a synchronicity of I'm in a very yang location with all this light behind me, and you're in
Yeah,
a very yin
and it's getting really
location with all
dark.
this darkness. And I don't know if that points to a trajectory in our conversation or not, but maybe in terms of the energy, I'm winding up from my day and you're winding down from yours.
Hmm.
Look, you look really funny. You look like just like hiding there in the gloom, like a little gremlin or something. Secret Benny
Yeah,
hiding.
just like scheming for how to
Yeah,
save the world.
yeah, yeah, man, totally. Um, did that any of that track for you? Like,
Any of what?
I don't know, all the stuff that I was saying. I guess it did because you responded.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Just forgive my short-term memory loss.
No, it's chill,
Maybe
man.
that's yeah. Wondering if maybe that's because I used to smoke weed at probably too young of an age.
Hmm.
Um,
I've been wondering about that as well. Actually, I have really shit memory, and I never followed uh maths through beyond like a year 11, age 17, 18 kind of level. Not really. Stats definitely, but not maths. And that also ties in with geography. Like my geography is really poor, and so that kind of method of loci stuff. I wonder if there's connections there between thinking spatially, thinking and memory, and all of that's kind of connected. Oh, look at you! You're back. Maybe
the
I'll.
light, dude, turn off the sun to keep the duality. Yeah. And like as usual, there's a couple things I wanted to bring up, like from before we started having the conversation, and just haven't done it yet because of how um kind of trigger happy we are on just like following the
Spontaneous.
conversational flow.
One thing I just noticed about what we were saying just before you do that is that there's kind of a couple moments there where I kind of like I called for something more from you, where like I heard what you were saying, and then I was like I asked kind of probing questions about like, oh, what do you mean by that, or like, can you say more about that specific thing? And like, I just wondered how those things kind of landed with you, and whether that felt kind of demanding and annoying and not what you wanted. And
No, I like that, and I actually want to become more conscious of like doing that when I hear something in you that I want to
hmm.
you to expand on. Which I think I've asked you to do that, but not enough, I don't think. But I think that's a very valuable response for
Cool,
sure.
cool, cool. Um,
Um,
do you want to go? Or
yeah, let's see. Well, let's see if this resonates with you. One of them had to do with Nate, and another discrepancy I had. Um, his thesis for running out of oil and not fucking over the future generations. Um, I don't think it's like a good idea to try to keep sustaining a cancerous superorganism type of thing. So yeah, ultimately we're like extracting it really fast and using it all up and it's going to be gone. But I don't think it's good to keep our current model of like wanting to be able to use it forever. Does that make sense?
so what you're saying is, uh, it's not a bad thing to be using up the oil now.
Not necessarily because it does have like the other side of the spectrum externalities of like pollution, which is kind of my point. Like, I don't know if we should use it, period, in a perfect world. I'm not saying it's really easy to just completely stop because that'd be unbelievable collapse, right? But um, the notion that like we're fucking over our future generations by using it too quickly is kind of like, okay, this is an unsustainable cancerous superorganism. We don't want to keep it alive. We need there to be some sort of transformation. Anyways, um, where ultimately we find and or make some new innovation that uses energy in a more like eco-friendly way.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, does it? I mean, does it seem to you like that's what he's kind of saying? Like that's his thesis?
I think my perception of Nate is that he's he's functioning as like an alarm bell functioning as like a canary in the coal mine. And he's saying, hey, all of these curves are going to have to change. And like, it's not that, so you're right in the sense that it's like, our current use of coal and oil is unsustainable in the sense that, when we get to the point where it's all used up, we'll have to change. And with oil, that's coming soon. And he's saying, hey, we're running out of oil. We're going to have to change. But like, you're right in the sense that it's not as if using up all the oil now is fucking over the future generations, because they're going to be using something different, right? And like, it's kind of like he's just pointing out the developmental trajectory of the superorganism that's already existing. Like, so there's a way of responding to him, which is kind of like, yeah, it is changing, isn't it? But I think his point is that like most people don't know, and there's a way of kind of leaning into the change of a source of energy or of anything else voluntarily, which is really different from, oh shit, we run out of oil. Wouldn't it be good if we'd worked out how to use a different energy source by now? Oh, too bad we didn't know.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for clarifying that. That makes a lot of sense.
Does it? Okay,
Um,
what landed there? What makes sense? What?
like he's like the alarm bell, right? And like
Mm,
people need to know this, not so that we necessarily try to uh extend how long we can use the oil for, but just in general, the fact that it will run out.
mm.
Um, and that we fundamentally need to change something for sure. So I guess just like pointing to the urgency to change because it's unsustainable slash it's not going to last forever. And what we do now, we all have butterfly effects, and what we do now is going to impact generations to come for however many years.
That makes me think of the Kurzgesagt video about the last human that we watched on camp. Do you remember
Yeah,
that?
yeah, of course.
How did that video land with you? Or maybe the question is something like, do you see how that video ties into what we were just saying about oil affecting future generations, and like,
Yeah, absolutely.
how does that connection show up for you here, if at all?
Um, I like it, but I think they're a little bit too much on like the futuristic AI
Mm,
sentiment. Um, they had another video after that called it was all about collapse. And they went to like Rome and then they shouted out this book called What We Owe the Future, which is all
mm,
about long-termism. And the reason I asked that question about Nate and brought up this direction was because I went to the reviews on Amazon and I saw this really good like 1-star rating. Really good in the sense that his answer to why he put 1 star was really phenomenal. And he
of Reality
basically
Blind,
said, no, not real, of What We Owe the Future.
right?
And yeah, he was basically saying like, what are we trying to preserve for our future? Like, are we trying to extend and prolong cancerous behavior and acting from separation? Um, which I want to say this while it's still fresh in my mind because it just came back to me. Nate's advice of like collapsing early, and I would add like simplifying early, which like would create a new culture. And culture is upstream of economy and pretty much environment because we have like godlike technology. So if we had a culture that found wholeness within and in each other, and we required and had less demand for stuff and things, then there would be a lot less demand for all the natural resources that underpin all the that whole process. So what I'm getting from Nate, the message is definitely like collapse early, simplify early. The people who can, and that I guess that's kind of like one role of the imaginal self. to collapse and simplify early before we have to. But I did like that video a lot. It really drives, like in terms of using art and story to drill a point home. I think that was really beautiful for getting you to understand like the impact that like, oh shit, like except that there is a minor flaw with um like saying that we're a mammal and the average mammal lifespan has been like whatever 10 million years. We're not ordinary mammals. Like we're for sure a different genre. So who
We
fucking knows?
decided that they're mammals. We were the ones who
Yeah.
invented the term mammal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's a fucking great thing to say for sure. So yeah, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm. Yeah, lots to pull out there. So it's kind of like, well, at least for me, that video that the last human, final human from
Yeah.
Kurzgesagt was like really motivating in an optimistic sense of like it's not just that we're um in the sense of there are potentially infinite, past humans, but also future humans watching our actions, watching the the whole world watches what we do, you know. And this is it's a critical point in history, and it's kind of like this bottleneck, and that really landed for me in a way that kind of connected me with the meaning of my actions, like the gravity of my individual choices, um, that I didn't have before there, at least in relation to the future. I had it in relation to the past. Um, and I've definitely felt before as if I'm carrying a legacy, an inheritance, and that the people that have influenced me are kind of lived through me.
Mm,
But there's also a way of figuring that in relation to the future, where it's like I am carrying not just my own potential, but the potential for the future of humanity, and that is an infinite potential, and like really connecting with how infinite that infinity is.
hmm
Yeah, is a useful, motivating, and grounding, clarifying thing to do. Um, and so, hang on, why was that? Why was that relevant now? Why did I bring it up now? Connected with what you were saying about Nate,
Well,
right?
we were talking
So,
about long-termism.
right, okay. So we were talking
Well,
about, yeah,
you were just asking if that Chris was that video, like if I
yeah,
felt that it fit in to what we were
yeah.
talking about. And I was like, yeah, it's about long-termism for
Mm.
sure.
So something
And
about like, yeah,
well, just like the just like to re-clarify the theme that I brought up was like so a sustainable future, like prolonging an unsustainable cancerous superorganism versus like changing before we inevitably run out of what's underpinning the
mm-hmm,
cancerous
mm-hmm,
superorganism.
mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's a way of this kind of relates to different dialectics between like sustainability and unsustainability, and conservatism and progressivism, where like um, to be sustainable, that's our goal, right? At different times, that can mean an incentive to change or an incentive to stay the same, and
Yeah, that's a
depends on
fun
the current state
dialectic.
of things. Where it's like I notice this dialectic a lot with like of people in my country that are really up and about Aboriginal, like the rights of Indigenous Australians, and giving them respect and recognition that they haven't had in the past from Europeans, and that's all. Those are great things to do, and I'm on board with that. But it tends to come through the lens of the far left. It tends to be there's this association between the politically left progressives and advocating for Indigenous rights, or et cetera, et cetera. And it's not that that's a problem. It's just that a big part of what makes cultures like that really interesting, really worth attending to, is that they were so sustainable and that they lasted for so long. But the way that they did that was actually by being quite conservative in the sense of to be able to live in a place on a land for like upwards of 100,000 years, or I don't know, 40,000 to roughly 100,000 years. Innovations are risky things.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this, it's not necessarily true that there's an association there, an inevitable association between progressivism and sustainability. There actually usually is an association between sustainability and conservatism. Although not always, because what we're getting at in our current state of things in terms of oil use, as you're saying about Nate, is that it's like, okay, the way that we're doing things at the moment is unsustainable. Therefore, things are going to have to change. But like, that doesn't look like drawing out our use of oil so that it lasts longer for us. Although, if that allows us the room to maneuver to create something new, then maybe that is something that we want to look
Yeah,
into.
great point. Great point.
But it also doesn't look like accelerating our use of the oil, because that's going to reduce the window that we have to be able to create something new. So it's like we have to, in the same way that the Daniel's metaphor about the bird emerging from the egg, well, it's like the bird is using up the egg white uh, uh, before it hatches. And like if the bird was able to run a little calculation while it was in the egg, then it's like, oh shit, we're running out of like the one fuel source that we have. Everything's gonna collapse, right? But it's like there's a discrete nonlinear phase shift that happens where like after the egg white's all used up, that just so happens to be the time at which the bird breaks out of the shell and starts this whole new transitional phase. And so like the message there is something like, just because it seems as if our use of the oil is existentially threatening because we don't yet have another fuel source, that doesn't necessarily doesn't mean we have to be fatalistic or pessimistic about the future, because it's like that approaching pressure point, bottleneck, is itself the catalyst for transition to something else, something more sustainable, hopefully. We hope. But it's like, I guess knowing that is useful. So it's like, it's not that you want to like know about, because there's like people that are totally unaware of the oil stuff. It's like, oh, turns out we're in this oil bubble and it's gonna run out. It's like, oh shit. But it's like, no, actually that's not necessarily the response. The response isn't necessarily, oh shit. It's like, oh, okay, we better find something new. So there's a way of receiving information about impending change, which is, oh, okay, impending change, not, oh shit, impending change, you know. But it's like, if it's impending change when we don't have the answers yet, that doesn't mean, oh shit, we don't have any answers. It means, looks like we're gonna need some answers, guys. Let's find some.
Great point. Yeah, beautiful concept that you were able to express there. Was that you that Jamie was telling uh he was saying something like about there's too many people on the planet for this system, but he doesn't think that it's too many people in general that like another system couldn't support.
Yeah, I
I
think
remember
so.
seeing
I
something
don't
like that.
remember where that comes from, but it's something like, um, if you really made solar work, if you really made, uh, particularly with energy, I'm not so sure about food, because a lot of the way that we produce food at the moment uses a lot of land that we would theoretically need for people if we don't want to live just in cities, which kind of fuck us up psychologically. Um, but at least with energy, Elon Musk is like, oh, if you put solar panels on like a corner of, I don't know, one of the sunniest states, you could like power the whole United States. And like it doesn't take that much land area to power everything in theory. And so that's a way of like, okay, you could support a whole world population energy wise, with a more sustainable system in theory. So I think yes to that point. Does that track?
Yeah, but yes, as in like there is a way for um like there is a system that can support this population.
I think um, I don't know for sure that that's the case, but I don't think anyone knows for sure that that's not the case. And I'm really wary of the people that are like, there's definitely no way of supporting this many people, because as Daniel was pointing to, that tends to lead to good people thinking about depopulation strategies. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't think we're going to need to do that. I think the world's going to, uh,
Did he bring up that example on part three with Nate?
yes,
Okay, yeah. Yeah. That was a really good point. I'm glad he brought that up.
which actually is that's actually a really hard thing to sit with, because it means that you have to have faith in the potential existence of nonlinear phase shifts, like the one that we were describing with the bird and the egg, right? We have to
Hmm.
believe, oh, there must be a way for us to live sustainably with this many people on the planet. And if there's not, that's bad. What am I saying? I'm not sure. I don't know. The best answer is I don't know if there's a way of doing that. But I think if anyone says either way, they're not being honest about what they know and what they don't know. If anyone's
Mm.
like, no, I'm sure that there's no way for that to happen. Like, how do you know? I don't know. I don't know, man. That's my
I would
instinct.
definitely, if I had to pick, I would definitely say I know. Like if I had to choose certainty, I would say I know that there's some sort of innovation that's going to make sense when it happens in retrospect. And Jamie's kind of talked about that, which is why mystical experience is like important to this transformative time. Because he said like, oh, he's been able to see it, like see through time and being like, oh, everything
Mm.
works out.
Hmm.
And he's made it to the Garden of Eden. But then he mentions that it's like you can't just like fuck off after that. He's like, it's
Yeah,
like he's like you win by a buzzer beater in double
yeah,
overtime.
yeah.
But it's like you get glimpses of like, oh, it does all work out. And there is some sort of like I feel hesitant to use like the cliche like greater force or higher power, but there's something like bigger than us that's almost like guiding uh the flow of everything. And it
It,
definitely like you can get to that conclusion from mystical experiences.
yeah. Although that's probably not the only way. Although let's not go on that track. That is to say, if someone's not interested in mystical experiences, there are other ways of having that insight. I think. I hope. I suspect. But for me, like just to one thing about what you're saying is that it's like, uh, okay, there's some higher power being guided in some way, and everything works out in the end. We don't, you know. But then the question is like, there's something there about the world that we feel we live in isn't the world we live in. Something about it's like everyone has a concept in their mind, a sense in their mind of like, okay, this was what happened in history, and that's kind of like how things have gone, and like, oh, this is how the future will be, like, oh, and things are kind of going along this track. But like when you have insights into this kind of stuff that we've been talking about, it's like, oh, my understanding of the past, that's actually just a story, and my understanding of the future, that's actually just a story. And it's not to say that they're wrong, but they're just stories. And it's like whatever change that's going on, those stories are themselves a part of that change. And like so people's understanding of what the past was and what the future is, those understandings have themselves changed over time. You're frozen. Well, I guess I better stop recording then. Call him back.